Web3 is a funny place where people are actually excited to see you be yourself. People are excited to see you, be yourself to the fullest. They really like authenticity, and they want to empower you. So I think like the money is there. It's just really about like who you're talking to, how deep you are in the space, what communities are you involved in, which discords are you in, who are you talking to, and eventually like just give it enough time. I think it's possible for artists to really see some really great sales.
Hello to our NEWFORUM community. We're always excited to bring you inspiring and brilliant guests on our podcast. We're powered by NewCoin Foundation, focused on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem in a community of visionaries, creators, and investors to spark conversations on the topics of crypto, the metaverse, NFTs, and everything Web3.
And in today's episode, we are super excited to have with us Rahul Nanakumar, aka Giga Rahul on Twitter. He's a student at Rutgers University and a steward at Scarlet DAO, a project building city DAOs around colleges in the US. They're building a social club and a fellowship to onboard students onto Web3. And today we're going to discuss with Rahul DAO communities, Web 3.0, and social tokens, and also touch a bit on sustainability. We are excited to have you here, Rahul. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here. I love what you guys are doing, and I'm excited to have a conversation about, Web3, social Web3, and all the above.
So Rahul, why don't we start with you introducing yourself to the community, and also like what got you into Web3 and what are you doing in Web3?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, I got started in Web3 around a year and a half ago. At the time, I was working on a startup, and we were developing in the creator economy. So the core concept was like, what if you could invest in your favorite creators, right? I had a really good friend of mine who was a YouTuber, and I just wanted to help him align incentives with his community, not have to, get some third-party monetization so that he could really fulfill what his vision was. And we ended up looking into crowdfunding, like actually raising funds through, Reggae, Reggae, and it ended up just being way too expensive for us. So I got interested in cryptocurrency at the time, and I started doing research on personal tokens, social tokens, started learning about various startups, various people who were involved in the space. And that's initially what got me involved in the whole crypto scene, actually. And then afterwards, I got invited to join the Kernel Fellowship, which is this wonderful fellowship. It's an 8-week-long network building / curriculum with weekly office hours with some incredible people in Ethereum and various other L1s, and you get connected to a lot of really great people there. And that was really an eye-opening experience for me. I'm still a student. I'd taken a gap semester, so I really hadn't had this exposure to things that were outside of my major. So it was incredible to see like the sort of innovation that was happening and what was possible. I think the kernel curriculum really gave me like an exposure into what the potential of blockchain is, especially with a social perspective, based around core concepts like decentralization and building a new narrative for Web3 outside of just like markets, and really building around community. And like a culture of giving even. So Kernel Fellowship was amazing. I started a DAO there that was also based around the creator economy, and then came out and sort of realized that, coming back into school in person for the first time in a very long time, I wanted a community of students at Rutgers. I wasn't getting the same sort of, Web3 vibe that I was on Twitter, and I really wanted to like engage in research and community and building in person with a lot of my friends. So that's what initially started Scarlet DAO, is finding 2 or 3 people coming together and saying, let's build out a community. Let's really see what we can do. And since then, it's been a really great experience. I've had the opportunity to speak to some incredible people, partner with some alums who are working really deep in the Web3 space. And I think as of recent, I've really fallen in love with DAOs, building a digital nation, focusing on community and concepts like platform cooperatism that I think really need to move to the forefront of the discussion around Web3 social and the culture of Web3. So yeah, that's I guess my story.
Can I quickly ask you what is your major? Because I want to know if it's like related to kind of tech or did you do something completely different?
So I'm a finance major.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like completely irrelevant to crypto. I just think it's like my passion is really DAOs. So, I'm trying to find a way to make things fit there. But yeah, it's my major.
I can definitely see the excitement on your face as you're talking about the space, you're talking about DAOs, and it's contagious, I must say. And I want to know how you got to that point, because most people are interested in like Web3 and all these tools, but then they find it intimidating and they don't really know how to learn or how to process it. And like, I'm just curious to know how did you get to the point? Because they say that skills trumps passion. I don't know, I don't know, some people might agree or not, but the more you know something, the more you can enjoy it. And you've gotten to this place where you really have a great understanding of DAOs and your purpose and like digital communities and all that. And I'm curious to know, like, how did it get to that point for you?
The funny thing about DAOs is that, at least in my perspective, they're just like another step along this really long trend of people finding each other on the internet and building communities. Web 1 was you had like forums, right? So people would create forums about various topics that they were interested in. They'd have conversations. And then Web 2, you have Instagram and Twitter and these sort of consolidated platforms. And now I feel like we're reverting back to a place where communities have ownership over their platforms again, right? So DAOs, I think, are really just another way for communities to get ownership over conversation, over their inability to be censored, and additionally build the layer of value for themselves. So now you have like cultural bastions of like artists and creators, take for example FWB, which is like I happen to be a member of, and it's just like it's an amazing Discord, amazing community that's online and offline that is generating value for itself. And I don't think that would be possible. If not, it'd be a lot more difficult if it was not a DAO, or if we hadn't had the availability of cryptocurrencies for governance purposes, so like governance tokens, or just for accruing value. So the token gated mechanism of you need 75 FWB coin to be in the Discord, and that's the barrier we're going to set for this subculture we're developing within this online space. I think, yeah, it's just new social tools that we're enabling by setting barriers and not like having this forced sort of, I think the culture on Instagram, I think, is specific, like a specific distinction from what we have right now. Like, I can't really think of a single cultural touch point that like Instagram has. A lot of at least my personal feed, just feels like it's very generalized, right? Like, I feel like the value and the culture in Web3 is a lot more tactile, it's a lot more tangible. And that's only possible because of our ability to accrue value to various communities with cryptocurrencies.
I think I'm just most curious to know. So you said I think the passion to want to support your friend sort of was kind of like that first step, which is quite amazing, to get into Web3, I'd say. But I think I'm mostly interested to how you you became, I guess, I don't know if the word is proficient. Like, how did you learn about it? Like, what was your approach to learning? Because most people get discouraged, like, even when you see DAOs, you're like, what is DAOs? What is DAOs? Like,
Yeah.
NFT and non-fungible. And I heard someone saying fungus or whatever. People are so like silly about these things. And
Yeah.
so it's like, how did you go about it? So you want to help your friend, and somehow you stumbled upon Web3 culture and you got interested. But how did you learn about it and get to this point where you're really enjoying it so much?
Okay. I think it was two main things. So one was I've always been internet native. So, I'm a Gen Z. I've, been on the internet my entire life. I've been on Reddit. And I think Reddit sort of sets you up for the concept of like communities that are centered around a specific interest or orientation. So I think that inherently prepared me for getting involved in various DAOs, where the membership, is still based around interest. Like, hey, let's start a DAO around the creator economy. So that would be like essentially just like interacting in a subreddit, right? But I think what got me across the language barrier, I think that a lot of like, it's a huge problem Web3 has, right? Like, what is a DAO? What is an NFT? It feels, in some ways like an extension of, I don't know if it's like pretentiousness or whatever. I feel like we really need to actually make the vocabulary a lot more accessible. But I think what really got me past that was getting involved with the kernel fellowship and a proper onboarding ritual, and a proper onboarding curriculum, and a group of people who sort of understood the space so that they were like enough to actually explain it to me. That was so valuable. And that's partially what we're trying to do at Scarlet DAO, right? It's like a focus on proper onboarding. Everybody in the space is talking about adoption. We need like so many more people in the space right now. But I think we might need to take it a little slower to see actually what the right way to onboard people into Web3 is. There's like a huge narrative around, number go up, like, the price or the value of a community is inherently tied to the price of their token. In the short term, there's a lot of people who are looking to strictly arbitrage these tokens and make money on their price swings without actually contributing to the token. And I think instead, like focusing on contribution, focusing on like what communities to contribute to, focusing on proper DAO principles, building resilient organizations, focus on building digital public goods, like new things like digital reputation, digital identity. All of these sort of topics like are not really seen in the broader narrative around Web3. But I do love, of course, like talks about culture and art. And, I think that's been missing for a very long time, about talks about cryptocurrency. It's sort of like reclaiming culture for the people who actually are involved in this space. Like that's super important, aligning incentives. So we actually are like touching upon all of these various things in our curriculum, and it's still not entirely public yet, but we're developing with some really great people. But yeah, I think like all of this sort of stuff needs to definitely be more prevalent in the discourse around what Web3 is. And we need to start adopting people with that instead of like, here are the top 5 coins for, here are the top 5 coins for March, or like, here's where you make your money. Because a lot of people honestly aren't as interested in that as they are in building a future that's better for everyone.
So for me, like if I'm new in the space, like, and you have experience with building a DAO, how do you start? Do you get your 5 best friends who are all in the same niche topic, and then you just start a Discord? But how do we navigate? How do we give roles? How do we also bring like structure into it? I'm curious to know if you have any experience with that.
Yeah, definitely. So I've seen a lot of DAOs really try to navigate this balance between centralization, decentralization, navigate the balance between being able to take actions on behalf of the DAO, so like actually like contribute properly, and also ensuring that the decision making is at some point like democratic, right? I think if a DAO is just starting, the decision-making process can be a little bit more fluid. And I guess for that to happen, yeah, it's definitely easier to start off a DAO with a set of friends, set of people you already know, set of people that you can trust. And, not to say that the other way is entirely impossible, but it makes the beginnings of a DAO a little bit more complex. It also depends on exactly what your DAO is trying to achieve. So, you have a more technically oriented DAO with a protocol is going to act a lot more. It's going to act different from what a more socially oriented, cooperative style DAO is going to operate like. So I think, talking about founding a DAO is a lot like talking about founding a startup. It just, what the goals and what the mission is rather different as you progress. Actually, I guess a related topic to this is something that I've been researching recently is platform cooperatism, which it's rather new, I would say, like, to a lot of people in Web3 right now, but I think it's a really great touchstone for people starting DAOs, and I would highly recommend people to research more into that particular thing. Just like a brief summary, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but it's just been like really great researching. Nathan Schneider is a great professor who's written about this topic in a number of his papers. So platforms are like online platforms. So all the big names, big tech like Amazon, Google, Facebook. Facebook is like a media platform. Amazon is like a commerce platform. Amazon also has Amazon Web Services, right? So they have like a data platform. These are like platform corporations that are providing like a service that people can access. It's like maybe they'll charge like a monthly subscription or so on. But it's almost like a public good in a sense, like inherently, because it's needed, it's necessary, and yet like it's the single place where you can access this thing at like a really cheap place. They generally try to go for a higher market share. Uber also you could consider like a platform as well. And if you know anything about like the history of venture capital and like startups, which I really loved, and that's sort of why that's sort of what I really tried doing in my first 2 years at college, like really learning about this stuff. Venture capital, startups, like everybody is trying to be a platform, because if you can provide like a monopoly for a single service and be like the only the immediate name that you think of when you're doing ride sharing, or like the immediate name that you're thinking about when you try to type something in on Google, like it's Google, right? You don't even think of anything else. Like that's the level of retention that they really want. So that's like what an online platform is. But clearly there are some problems, because when you don't have competition, when you don't have a sort of shared ownership over these platforms, then you run into problems like edge cases, right? So Spotify, for example, has really bad pay for its artists, right? And artists are incredibly important to Spotify's business model, but they're not a shareholder. So instead, what if you had a platform like Resonate, which is cooperative, but is also a platform? So artists now have a stake. And I feel like DAOs are like platform cooperatives, but with crypto. Yeah, I'm writing a paper on this right now. So maybe I'll send it to you guys after.
Yeah, totally. You should.
Yeah. So I think platform cooperativism really would help like a lot of people who are just trying to get started with DAOs and do it the right way. I think also some more resources for people trying to start DAOs. You can take a look at what Forefront is writing. They curate a lot of really great work on building DAOs and building communities in Web3, and some immediate like crypto influencers, I would say, like Rafa the Builder at Rafa the Builder on Twitter, Chase Chapman, and I would just say like take a look at them and what they're doing, and it's some incredible stuff.
I love the background knowledge, it's really interesting. I like that you're doing a lot of research into this, and I think it's valuable for actually when we are building these DAOs, because we're going to face a lot of problems. And I think if we can just learn from what already happened, and we're going to build better platforms and better running things and running DAOs. And I have a quote from you. You said community tokens are like unions, if unions had stocks instead of corporations. So what can community tokens enable in DAOs?
Oh man, yeah. So community tokens for me are really just a way for networks and communities to reclaim value for themselves, right? Historically, you've had problems with like, class and like power and leadership, where it's just been that, shareholders accrue value to themselves, right? They have equity, they have control over various institutions, and you have workers who are getting paid like salaries or whatever compensation, but they don't actually have control over the systems that they're building. They can't vote towards certain things. Yeah. They don't have equity, for example, so they don't have any incentive, I would say, or as much incentive as the executives would in terms of financial equity. So the community tokens, I think, if used properly, mark a really important shift in communities deciding for themselves how they want to structure this contribution meets compensation structure. I think, I've seen this play out really positively in some DAOs. So Forefront, I think, is like another really great example of this, where they're incredibly generous with how they reward people. Oftentimes, like if you're just attending some meetings and you speak up, they'll reward you with some Forefront coin, which you can use immediately to start voting on various proposals that they have. They pay out all of their contributors in Forefront coin as well. And they've also raised some funding with the Forefront coin as well, which, I think is another benefit of having DAOs and having cryptocurrencies instead of going just the traditional cooperative route, where you have a lot of trouble with like bureaucracy, and equity has some very strict definitions. I'm not like a lawyer, but like I understand, just like you can't play around. Like, equity isn't composable in the same way as a cryptocurrency is, right? So yeah, so Forefront I think has done some really incredible things there, and yeah, I think there are a few other like DAOs out there, friends with benefits, I would say, but I think like fundamentally this is like a shift in communities actually getting ownership over how they want to set things, and I'm really excited to see how DAOs in the future are able to take advantage of being given the reins over their own financial futures.
I'm also curious to know, like, how can DAOs give artists like more opportunities, maybe like in terms of discovery, and what do you think about NFT creation DAOs?
They're needed, I think, in Web3. Mm-hmm. Like they're like a cultural necessity in Web3, and I'm incredibly happy to see that they're being recognized for the value they generate. I think the problem of artists is that they haven't traditionally been given the proper amount of value that they deserve, and simply that's only because the incentives weren't aligned for them to actually receive all the value that they generated. So Web3 can really help them by creating systems that are more fair. In terms of discovery, I think that's incredibly important. Marketplaces, we're seeing various different marketplaces pop up, Showtime and Zora, and not just like Ethereum based as well. You have marketplaces everywhere, Rarible, OpenSea, where artists can just mint their work. But I also think that there is a level of discovery that might not be strictly available just through marketplaces, right? When you think about the life cycle of an NFT project by a certain artist, generally it gains traction through their existing audience. So like if you look at like how people value NFT projects to actually see if like they're quote unquote investable, a lot of that comes from understanding, what is the particular reach of this artist? Like what are they currently doing? And I think, maybe that's not exactly where we want to end up going, right? Is like valuing based off of what artists are currently doing, and more on like what does this mean to me? Like, what does this content actually, signify? And more, just more of like a lens to help artists across the board. So I think for that, like, I'm excited for like reputation systems. I'm excited for curation systems. So there are various projects that I think are currently doing this, like mem protocol I think is really interesting. There's lens protocol that's been put out by Aave's like special projects, all these sort of like decentralized social graphs that I think will one day, like, we'll see them alongside these markets as a way to understand, how valuable an artist is, because there's so much that the market can't capture, and you simply need to sort of understand exactly what an artist has done and who they're comparable to. I think the market also doesn't really spend a lot of time actually getting to know these artists. And if you actually like sat down with a lot of them, like I have during Kernel, and like, just having conversations with people on Twitter, you'll find that like a lot of these people, really do have incredible stories, incredible backgrounds, have some incredible artwork. And yeah, I mean, if I had a little bit more money, maybe I'd be spending a little bit more money helping these young cultural, the next generation of artists really get started and start contributing and start working. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about discovery. I think it might also be cooler to see like more programs pop up for fellowships, like more sort of communities, more DAOs. And I think like that's where DAOs can come into the place, like actually developing networks, developing communities, so that artists can join a DAO and then receive just this lifetime membership of training and networking and people that they can reach out to. And historically, communities have always just been a place where artists have thrived, where you've seen pools of talent come together and add diverse input into a project that ends up blowing up. So yeah, I'm very bullish on DAOs, on digital identity and marketplaces. I think we really need to see a lot of more tooling for artist discovery as well. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff here that really I think is going to be beneficial for artists long term.
Whenever we talk about artists in Web3, then NFTs like pops up in my mind as well. And recently people have been discussing renting out NFTs, for example, as a license. What do you think about NFT use cases beyond digital art, and where could you see NFTs for rents being useful?
Yeah, so I guess I sort of recently have been seeing NFTs as more of this membership than just inherently like art on itself, right? So art, I really like music, so I've put out like some NFTs around music. I've also put out like some NFTs on just a picture or some digital artwork. In my perspective, this membership use case, like this utility where you get access to a community, you get access to a particular protocol or events, it just makes a lot more sense to me than the general sort of purchase the NFT to have ownership over this artwork, or like perhaps likeness or future royalties or so on. Because I think like not only does it allow artists to get paid, but it also really makes a value use case for communities as well. And if you can start fostering like the network, if you start token gating the actual people who are involved in this community, there's a lot of stuff you can do there in terms of education, network, and talent. So for NFTs in particular, I think the future is going to be in token gating communities, events, using NFTs as like membership. So I think there are already like a lot of projects doing that today. It's just going to be about how we can turn these NFT projects into something that's more than just like financial centric, finance centric. It's going to have to be about like orienting them towards sort of becoming a DAO. So yeah, I think the future of NFTs, like, I think recently, like a tweet that I saw that really spoke to me about like what NFTs were. It's like NFTs are just like a protocol, just like anything else, right? So like saying that you're building an NFT project today is saying that like you're building an HTTPS like project like 20 years ago. Because like inherently NFTs are just a technology and they need to be used in the proper way. So anybody can say that they're like developing a website, but like, what does it have on a website? Like what's going on? Like who's actually, designing it? What does it look like? And where's it linking, etc. So yeah, I think there's like a lot of stuff to do here. And yeah, I think membership is really like the number one thing that I'm excited for.
Well said. I think for me, that was also the point of why I joined Web3, is because I feel like we've all, or like at least me, I made pieces myself and I'm thinking in my little corner of the world, and it's like if you're a single artist or entrepreneur, you have only so much power, at least in the Web2 space, if you're not like a huge person already. And I think this is a really great thing that you can join a DAO with aligned incentives, and it doesn't feel like a corporate setting. It doesn't feel like you're just giving value and you're getting nothing back. It's more like, okay, I'm aligned with what they're doing. It's also motivation for myself to bring this project or bring these people forward, and I think that's the difference between the usual setting that we have, when brands work with people, or when corporate entities work with people. Then when you have DAOs, it's more like, okay, I want to see the team win. I'm gonna win. It's like this.
Yeah, we're all gonna make it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, what do you think? Like, where do you currently see the most emerging artists being connected in terms of like collectors in the NFT space? So, if I'm a new artist, like, how do I find my tribe? How do I find the collectors? Like, where do they connect, kind of?
I think for artists, if you're looking in the right places, it's not going to be too hard for you to get started. It just depends on who you know. I think crypto is very much in that space where the size of the industry isn't too big, like especially when you get deeper into Web3. So I think like, as long as you're in the right communities, I would say if you're in music, you can join a DAO like Song Camp. If you're in just visual arts, there are a number of different like communities out there for you. There is one called Colors. I would say like take a look at what Seed Club is putting out. They have like a lot of really great connections to various artists, and honestly a ton of other types of communities out there. They were actually my first like launch pad into Web3 as well. So, they're doing some incredible things. Keep an eye out for the startups who are involved in your space as well. So, Showtime, Catalog, Audius, Royal. And if you're doing anything experimental, I would say that might actually be in your favor. Like I've really enjoyed the work of Schlom's. I believe that is how you say his name. But he came out with a number of different projects back in the day. His recent one was called Car, where he blew up a Lamborghini Huracan, and he sold like 8,888 pieces of that blown up Lamborghini as NFTs. And his entire personality is incredibly like obscure. So yeah, I think like Web3 is a funny place where people are actually excited to see you be yourself. People are excited to see you, be yourself to the fullest. They really like authenticity, and they want to empower you. So I think like the money is there. It's just really about like who you're talking to, how deep you are in the space, what communities are you involved in, which discords are you in, who are you talking to, and eventually like just give it enough time. I think it's possible for artists to really see some really great sales.
NFTs totally bring a lot of value to creators, and I think that's such an amazing thing, because creators can be valued for the work they do, can be appreciated for the work they do, and they can also monetize. And then there's the ownership aspect of it, which I think is brilliant. However, I can't help but think about the the sustainability aspect of it, whether it's environmentally friendly, and if blockchain can actually solve this problem. What do you think? How can blockchain fix this situation? Yeah.
I do think the sustainability narrative around blockchain is important to address, especially to a lot of new people in the space. You see a lot of people who are talking about Bitcoin or talking about like Ethereum right now. They're both proof of work blockchains. And I would say that their sustainability is definitely in question. So for artists or anybody really who are concerned about those emissions, it's important to know that you have alternatives, right? You don't have to build on, it's impossible, first of all, to build on Bitcoin, but you don't have to build on Ethereum. You can build on number of different L1s. You can build on Avalanche, you can build on Silo, you can build on Tezos. It's not necessary that you build on Ethereum. So yeah, I would just say that because I've spoken, you wouldn't believe how many people I've talked to about like the environmental concerns, and they're like, oh, you like this, that, and you have to tell them that there are proof of stake blockchains that have minuscule comparatively to Ethereum, Bitcoin, minuscule emissions, problems with energy usage, all that. So that's would be my answer to the sort of sustainability dilemma or question that I see like a lot of people in the art community have. I guess I would also say, like, in terms of NFTs, I think like it's funny to me because I've seen a lot of stuff recently about tokenizing climate. And to me, that's like such a important solution to solving climate change. And that's only possible, I would say, or it's definitely aided by the fact that cryptocurrencies make it a lot simpler to tokenize things in general, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that. So it's essentially, what if trees and what if like plant life and the general biodiverse ecosystem across the globe had a financial value and was traded? And what if like you were able to monetize the fact that we're going to grow like trees at 5% year on year or something like that, right? Fundamentally, it's just about having a representation for the climate, for the ecosystem in how we think about markets. And that seems incredibly radical to me. And I don't hear any sort of talk about this outside of crypto. But projects like DAO, projects like I think Silo actually is now like a carbon neutral blockchain, and they have some tokenized climate initiatives as well. There are a lot of people working on this sort of stuff, and that's like not just neutral for the blockchain or a decrease of emissions, but a completely radically new tool to solve climate change, and that's currently being worked on. So yeah, I would say sustainability is thankfully something that people in Web3 are concerned about and are hearing and are addressing in a way that's going to be beneficial to everybody.
So do you think like if there would be some sort of reward system for people who choose kind of climate neutral things or technology, or even in real life, if you do something that is really good for the environment, do you think that can be like monetized, or say like that can be positively rewarded? Is that what I understand?
Yeah, so I would say that's definitely possible. I think like tokenomic systems make it incredibly easy to start something like that. But the discussion that I've been hearing about tokenizing climate is more about taking existing like biomass. So like you have trees or like rainforests, right? You have I would say like take the Amazon rainforest, for example, right? It's currently being deforested. The biodiversity is going down. What if you could represent this ecosystem as an equity that could be traded, right? So like this has like a total amount of market cap. It has this value. Inherently, like people would want to make more money on it, right? So if you're purchasing like a share in the Amazon rainforest, then you would want to see it grow and develop over time. So that is my understanding of tokenizing climate. And I think it's a really interesting thing to look more deeply into. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that's what I've currently been reading up on.
So it's kind of like an incentive to kind of get people to, because if you're staking in something, then you it's like you have skin in something, then you want to be more responsible and you want to pay more attention to it. And yeah, Web3 has amazing tools, and there are all these incredible possibilities. And I think the potential of Web3 is incredible. However, we have to also be careful about the sustainability side of things, because
Definitely.
yeah, we cannot ignore that. And just as we build it, as we shape it, we need to iron out all these problems before it gets out of hand. At least right now we've started, and so we're like navigating things, we're problem solving. A lot of times we hear guests say, we're not there yet, this is great, but we're not there yet, we're not there yet. And so at least we're not there yet. So while on our way to get there, we need to get through all these things and make sure we make it environmentally friendly and better for all of us. Rahul, really, this has been a great conversation. You really touched on great points, and I'm gonna be doing my research, and I made my notes on some of the new things I heard today, and I will also be looking forward to the paper you're writing. I'm sure Joy, yeah, I can see Joy nodding right there. So yeah, we're going to be expecting that. Thank you so much, really. We appreciate your time on this episode, and I want to know if you have like maybe a few words to share with our community, any advice, and then perhaps you can also share your social platforms links where our community members can find you and follow you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Salimi and Joyce. This has been a really good conversation. You guys can follow me at twitter.com/gigarahul, so GIGA Rahul. And I'm currently working at Scarlet DAO. So like we mentioned at the top of this, we're developing city DAOs around college campuses across the US, currently starting at Rutgers University. And you can follow us at twitter.com/Scarlet_DAO. We'll be posting updates on there semi-frequently. Currently just focusing on the in-person cohort right now, but we'll be opening up to virtual soon. And yeah, I think, my advice for people in Web3 or people just, getting started would be just to put in the time, right? Talk to as many people as possible. Talk to people you trust. I would say that there's like a lot of sort of the same stuff on Twitter, and it's probably better to like maybe go into Discord. All of the Discords that I've mentioned, all the communities I've mentioned so far in the podcast have been really great resources to me, and I think they'll be great resources for anybody looking to get into Web3 as well. Yeah, I would just say like, there's a place for everyone in Web3, and if there isn't already, then everybody is waiting for you to make a place for yourself and other people like you. And that's probably one of my favorite things about Web3 is like it actually is open to ideas, is open to change. It's just about making a space for yourself or meeting other people like you and just going out there and doing it.
Nicely said. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahul. And I think it's really been refreshing to hear like your perspective, like as a student, you're already building things. So I think that's super cool. And your insights were really valuable for the audience, I think. And yeah, so thank you everyone who tuned in with us today. And if you guys want to get more involved within our community, make sure to also follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We are NEWFORUM_NCO. And also NewCoin, and we have a private Telegram group where we chat and talk about Web3, and also feel free to reach out to me and Salimi or any other team members. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. And thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Salimi. Have a great evening.
Have a good evening.